I want to examine this statement here where it says, go up, bald head, where the young men are mocking Elijah because he's bald, basically saying, you cannot be the true prophet of God because you are bald. And so if we take a look at this commentary here, and we take a look at 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 23, when it talks about the bald head. If Elijah was a hairy man, see the comment in 1:8 or the last video, Elijah's baldness would have been a stark contrast and perhaps suggest to some that he could never have the same powers as his master. This taunt would therefore be a disavowal of his prophetic office and calling, and would be strikingly refuted by the immediate fulfillment of his curse. Therefore, in verse 19 to 22, Elisha removed a curse, while in 23 to 24, he effectuated a curse. And that last two comments there, where he removed a curse and effectuated a curse, points us to that Elisha, like Elijah before him, is the prophet like Moses. Remember how we talked about in Deuteronomy, where Moses pronounces blessings and cursings? If you are loyal to the Lord your God, you will find blessings. But if you are disloyal, you will find cursings. And so then we find that Elisha, when he healed the water, he has removed a curse. And for these young men who are mocking him, you can't be the true prophet of God because you don't have any hair. We all know that the true prophet of God has hair. So in 2 Kings 1 and 2, we see that people are judging a prophet based on his appearance instead of judging the prophet and examining to see if he actually is the true prophet like Moses or not. They just judge on appearance. Oh, he has hair. He's a prophet. He does not have hair. He is not a prophet. It reminds me of how when Samuel goes to anoint David as king, remember, Saul has been rejected as the king because he has not been following God. He has been more concerned about continuing to have the power of the kingship as opposed to leading the people into following God. Remember, he has rebelled against God, and he has done his own thing. And we find out that rebellion is like the sin of witchcraft. And then what do we find later? Saul then goes to the witch of Endor at the end of his kingship. At the beginning of his kingship, he rebels against God and doesn't do what God asks. At the end of his kingship, he goes to the witch of Endor. And so he has been rejected as king, and God tells Samuel, go anoint the one who is after my heart, or go anoint the one that I choose. Instead of anointing the one that the people choose, anoint the one that I choose. And so he goes to Jesse's house, and it says, and when they came, he saw Eliab, and Samuel said, surely his anointed one is before Yahweh. But Yahweh said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God does not see what man sees. For a man looks on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looks at the heart. The true prophet of God, you cannot tell the true prophet of God by his appearance. Remember, I think it's Ezekiel. Ezekiel, I think, he runs around naked for a year. Where Hosea marries Gomer, a prostitute. And most people would be like, a true prophet of God wouldn't marry a prophet. Or a true prophet of God wouldn't marry a prostitute. A true prophet of God wouldn't walk around naked for a year. You cannot look on the outward appearance to judge if a person is a true prophet of God. But that is what people continue to do again and again. We look on the outside, but God looks on the inside. The true prophet of God, Jesus tells us, it comes from the heart. What is in the heart, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so if the heart is good, the true prophet of God is going to be speaking the truth. But people want to see a true and judge a prophet based on his outward appearance. And so therefore, Elisha has no hair. He cannot be the true prophet of God. But Elijah, he is the true prophet of God. Why? Because he is a hairy man. Right here. He is a hairy man. Or, as what did we say before? That he is the Baal. Baal means Lord. He is the Lord of the hair. They answered him, the Lord of the hair, the true prophet of God, he told us that you were going to die. So we didn't go ask Baal-zebub because we found a true prophet. They were able to judge that he was the true prophet because of his hair. Which makes me then once again think of Samuel, where God says, I have rejected him. For God does not see what man sees. For a man looks on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looks at the heart. Which also then makes me think about Jesus, because Jesus is in a very similar situation. He happens to be at Jerusalem at the feast, and that people find out that, hey, look, why are the leaders trying to kill you type of a thing? And so Jesus says, they are trying to kill me because I have healed a man on the Sabbath. I have took a lame man and I have made him whole. And so let's take a look here. Jesus is making the argument that just as the leaders will circumcise a child on the 8th day, and if that 8th day happens to be on the Sabbath, they will still do the work of circumcising on the 8th day because that brings the child into the family of God, or marks him as the family of God. This transition point there on the 8th day. And so and Jesus says, in the purple, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. A man receives circumcision on the Sabbath, so that the law of Moses would not be broken. Are you angry with me because I made a whole man well on the Sabbath? And then Jesus says, do not judge according to the outward appearance, but judge according to righteous judgment. And who is God? He's the righteous judge. He judges according to the heart. But man, they look on the outside. Do not judge according to outward appearance. This is what Jesus says. Once again, people want to judge based on the outward appearance. In fact, they will use anything to be able to reject the true prophet of God. The true prophet of God, Elisha, cannot be the true prophet of God because he has no hair. Therefore, we can reject him. We don't even have to pay attention to what he is saying because we know that a true prophet has hair. And so what is going on here with the healing of the lame? Well, because the healing of the lame has taken on this significance that it will signify that the Messiah is coming. By healing the lame in the red here, by healing the lame in the temple, Jesus restored these excluded ones to full participation in the worshiping community. Makes me think about when John the Baptist, he happens to be in prison and he's like, wait a second, Jesus is not acting like what I thought the Messiah should act like. I shouldn't be in jail. Instead, the Messiah should be coming and bringing liberation so that everybody is free. And so John asks, are you the one that we have been waiting for? Are you the prophet like Moses? And so in the purple, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? And Jesus answered to the men that came in for John the Baptist. And Jesus answered them, go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me. Man looks on the outward appearance, and they say, Jesus can't be the true Messiah because he is not doing the things that we think that the true Messiah should do. And Jesus is saying, I am the true Messiah. All of these things point to me. And just like the prophets of old, where the people rejected them because they were not the type of prophet that they wanted, they found a reason to be able to reject them. So you reject them because they have no hair. You judge on the outward appearance as opposed to by the heart, like God. Stop looking on the outside, but judge with righteous eyes. And Jesus says here, verse 14 in the red, if you are willing, accept it. He is Elijah. He's talking about John. And what is the prophecy? That Elijah will come, and then after him, Elisha will come. Or Elijah will come, and then the Messiah will come, who will free the people from and bring in the kingdom of God. And so he's saying that John is Elijah, and I am the one who is going to come. I am the Redeemer that is to follow him. And just like Elijah, who was a hairy man, and he behaved one way, and Elisha was a bald man, therefore he was perceived differently. The same type of situation is going on here, where people are receiving one thing and rejecting the other, but in this case, they're rejecting both of them. And so he is Elijah, the one who is going to come, the one who has ears, let him hear. Jesus is trying to tell them, pay attention, because if he's Elijah, then I am the promised one. Down here in the purple, in verse 18, for John came neither eating or drinking, and they said he has a demon. People are going to reject the true prophet of God by finding something that they don't like and say, therefore, he can't be the true prophet of God. Instead of examining what he has said and examining the fruit, they reject it based on some sort of outward appearance. Oh, he doesn't know how to have fun. He can't be the true prophet of God. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a man who is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. Jesus is saying, look, it doesn't matter how the true prophet of God acts. You are going to reject the true prophet of God. John the Baptist is Elijah, the true prophet of God, and I am the promised one to come after Elijah. And just like Elisha was rejected because he has no hair, I'm rejected because I'm eating and drinking with sinners. John the Baptist did not eat and drink with sinners, or he didn't drink any wine. Why? Because he is a Nazirite. A Nazirite doesn't do that. And so then they say, well, obviously he can't be the true prophet of God. And they forget. They forget that Samuel was a Nazirite, and he is the very image of a prophet of God. And so when it comes to the prophets of God, you cannot judge on the outward appearance because they're all going to be looking differently. Instead, you have to judge them by the fruit. And that's what Jesus says. But I tell you, here in the red, but I am telling you the truth. You do not believe me. Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. So when it comes to judging the true prophet of God, Jesus is the very definition, the pinnacle promise of a prophet like Moses. And he was rejected. Why was he rejected? Jesus says, but because I am telling you the truth, you do not believe me. Then in the green, the one who belongs to God listens and responds to God's words. You don't listen and respond because you don't belong to God. You do not belong to God. Therefore, you are going to refuse any opportunity to listen to the true prophet of God because you don't want to listen to the true prophet of God. You want to continue to do your own thing. Therefore, you find a reason to reject the true prophet of God. Oh, he's bald. He can't be a prophet. I'm going to reject him. But Jesus tells us how we judge a true prophet. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inside are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. You will recognize who? You will recognize the false prophets by their fruit. They do not gather grapes from thorns or figs from you. They do not gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles, do they? In the same way, what? True prophets and false prophets. How do you judge true prophets and false prophets? Every good tree produces a good fruit, so the true prophet. But a bad tree produces bad fruit, a ravenous wolf. A good tree is not able to produce bad fruit, nor a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that does not produce good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. As a result, you will recognize them by their fruits. How do you recognize false prophets? By their fruits. How do you recognize true prophets? By their fruits. You cannot dismiss a prophet because of the way that they look. A true prophet is judged by their fruits. To dismiss a prophet by the way they look is to follow in this very same pattern of all the other people that have rejected the prophets of old. Those 42 young men that were mauled by the bear because they mocked the true prophet of God because they didn't want to listen to him because he was bald. A true prophet of God is judged by their fruits. And sometimes it takes a while to judge them by their fruits. Sometimes it takes a while to be able to judge whether or not a prophet is true or not, because it takes a while for the fruit to ripen. And sometimes it's not until you examine the ripened fruit to find out if it is good or if it is not. There's many different ways in which fruit can be bad. It can be rotten. It can be the wrong type of fruit. It can be infested with bugs. It could have a blight. There's many different ways, and you won't know until you examine it. And sometimes it takes a while for the tree to mature or the fruit to mature to the point that you are able to recognize if it is a good tree or a bad tree. And so you need to do the work. Do not just reject a prophet based on their appearance. Do the work of finding out if they are a good prophet or a bad prophet. And you cannot just assume that somebody is a good prophet because they have all the markers of a good prophet. You have to examine the fruit.